Taking over from Mr. Davis, you notice on the title that it's Piaget applied to learning. So he talked about the 4 stages of Piaget and really moving up that cognitive ladder, because Piaget is cognitive development, how our brain develops. We're going to see other types of development, moral development, and everything else. But as we move up, it's important that you think about how we make that stair step, because we talked about discontinuity. How do we move up those stairs? And I'm going to put up here Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. Now that's huge. Zone of proximal development. I mean, what? That sounds like you're just trying to make it confusing. Here's what you might want to write in your notes. Here's the way you think about Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. You think you don't want to make anything too hard, and you don't want to make anything too easy, because you're not going to learn if it's too easy, and you're not going to learn if it's too hard. How do we move up that ladder? We move up that ladder by staying within Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. So we were talking in Unit 6 about how video games can be so addictive and how we can keep playing. Well, how do video games stay addictive? They're hard enough that it takes a little bit of a challenge, but they're not so hard that you're always going to fail. And they're not so easy that you succeed every time. And that's how we build complex cognitive behaviors, by staying within that part. So here's what a kid can do with no help at all. Well, you're not learning if you can already do it. And here's above here is where a kid can't do it even with help. I mean, no amount of teaching can get, like if you started putting me into an advanced robotics class, it would be a way up here. What you want is to keep people who are learning in that zone of proximal development. This is what they can do by themselves. This is what they already know. This is what they could really never do, or at least not do right now. This is Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. Let them stair step up. Think about your writing when you were in first grade, and think about your writing now. I'm assuming it's a lot better because we stair-stepped you. We didn't give you a research paper when you were in kindergarten or first grade. We stair-stepped you up that way. That is Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. So we want to keep kids there. Okay, now we're going to talk about attachment theory. I'm going to move this over. I don't know where I'm going to move it. I'll move it right here. We're going to talk about attachment theory. And Harry Harlow, we're going to watch some information from Harry Harlow. We're going to watch a video. In the 50s, the theory was with kids that you could spoil them by holding them too much, that you were supposed to not spoil them. And then Harry Harlow in the 50s said, I don't think that's true. I don't think you can really hold a baby too much. So he did an experiment, which we're going to look at in class, with monkeys. And basically, he said, if we have 2 wire mothers for this monkey, one that feeds it, but one that's nice and cuddly, which will it love? And you'll see how they figured out how the monkey loved it. But which will it love? And a lot of people said, well, of course, the wire mother that feeds the monkey. And of course, Harlow found out that it's not true at all, that the monkey was really attracted to, not in that sense, but wanted to spend time with that mother that cuddled it. And so basically in the 50s, we really rethought what kids need. They need to be held. They need attachment. And he called that contact comfort. And there's a couple of videos here. And lack of contact comfort can lead to failure to thrive. And we're going to talk about failure to thrive a little bit right now. In the 80s, there were a whole bunch after Ceausescu fell in Romania, and the country was kind of in chaos. There were a lot of babies in orphanages, and they were taken care of. They were fed. Everything was fine, but the nurses didn't have enough time to hold these babies. And what they found is some of these babies were getting sick. They were kind of wasting away. They were dying. They were developing problems that they really never recovered from later in life. So if you search on the internet Romanian orphans, you'll see that this was kind of a real-time experiment in contact comfort. And failure to thrive is a physical thing. It's not just kids will be sad. They can physically get deficits and sometimes even waste away and die if they don't have that love, that contact with a caregiver. That's contact comfort. So we'll watch those videos in class. What you'll also see in infancy is you will see what they call synchronicity, and you will see the baby and the parent or whomever. If the mom does this or the dad does this, the baby will do it too. You'll see a lot of those mirror neurons working. And one of the things that caseworkers will look at when they're in Child Protective Services is how well do the baby and the caregivers do synchronicity. And that's a sign of connection. That's a sign of attachment. And then this is, let me move this. Gosh, so many videos. Infancy is a critical period when attachment occurs. It's not like you can say, you know what, we're just gonna not do attachment until the baby's about 8. No, that's not going to happen. That is a critical period. It's a critical period for language. It's a critical period for contact comfort. It's a very important thing. So it's really not that hard to be a parent. Just hold your baby really is kind of the basic part. Okay, and then we're going to watch a video down here about imprinting. Talk about contact comfort. You will see these geese that are following after a person. Imprinting is kind of the animal version of it. Okay, and we'll watch that video in class. So attachment theory says an infant must develop a relationship with at least one caregiver for development to occur naturally. And when we say a relationship, this is not just that they know this person. This is, being held. This is being fed. It doesn't need to be a biological mother or father, but it needs to be somebody, and they need to have somebody to rely on. And when I say rely on, it's like if I cry, if I soil my diaper, if I'm hungry, I will get my needs taken care of. And if you don't have that, there can be some major, major problems later on. Some minor, some major. And that we're going to watch a video called The Strange Situation, and we find out what attachment looks like if we put a toddler or a young child in a room with a stranger, and how do they behave around that stranger. And that'll tell us how well that child is attached to the parent, but we'll do that in class. So we'll look at all of the attachment styles there too, but it's important. We use the strange situation, Mary Ainsworth's strange situation, to determine what sort of attachment a child has with the parent. Okay, I don't know why it popped up there. That's a weird thing. That's okay. So as we look at attachment, so we were talking about Mary Ainsworth, the strange situation. That is in toddlers. What we're talking about here is all the way through, you going away to college. So we're going to talk about child rearing and what type of parents you have. And I know a lot of you are going to think that you have number one here, authoritarian parents, highly demanding. They coerce you. They're kind of forcing you to do stuff. They criticize you. They rely on punishment. There's a book that came out, I don't know, 5 years back or so, about a mom who it was called the Battle Hymn of the Tiger Mother or something like that. And the story that made the rounds was the kid gave the mom a birthday card, a homemade birthday card, and the mom gave it back and said, "Is that the best you can do? That's you didn't spend any time on that card." And I know some of you are going, "Whoa!" Well, that's kind of an authoritarian parent where they have super high expectations and they're very criticizing, and they just drive that kid. Okay. And then we have an authoritative parent, which I would be willing to bet, if you are like all my other classes, whenever we do a survey on this, at least 2/3 of you have authoritative parents. They make demands, but they're reasonable. They have rules, but they explain them. And they listen to you. So if you say, hey, my curfew is 11, and a lot of stuff that I do doesn't get done till 11:30. Can I come home at midnight? The authoritative parent might still say no, but they would at least say, well, let me think about it. Tell me why. Let's talk about this. The authoritarian parent up here would say, hey, my house, my rules, kid. The authoritative parent will say, I'm still going to make that rule, but I'm going to explain to you why. They set limits, but also you feel like you're being heard. And I'll bet a lot of you are right there. And then we have permissive parents. This is the parent that basically, I think what happens with permissive parents a lot of the time is they love the kid too much, and so they don't set limits or boundaries. So they're the ones who say, well, if you're going to shoot heroin, I'd rather have you do it at home than do it at somebody else's house. And it's like, what? Wait. You need to set limits. So permissive parents really care about their kids. They do, but permissive parents allow the child to kind of do whatever they want because they love them so much. They're Amy Poehler from Mean Girls, if you've ever seen that movie. Anyway. We've gotten there. And then we've got the last one. And this is the worst. Uninvolved. They're permissive, but they just don't seem to care. They don't have any expectations at all. They're not involved in any way, hence the name. And they're not as concerned as they should be about you. They just say, well, you can do this on your own. You're great. So we have a whole bunch of control, a fair amount of control, but they listen. Really no control, and they let you do what they want. And this one just doesn't even seem to care, okay? So let's take a look at this, and this is the last slide we're going to look at. So if you have low control and low warmth, this is going to be, and if you want to write this in your notes, you can. This is going to be the uninvolved parent right here. If you have low control but high warmth, you love the kid, but you don't really have a lot of control. So the warmth, it's I love you a lot, and you can do whatever you want. This is the permissive parent. If you have high control and low warmth, this is that authoritarian parent. This is the person who says, I don't care what you think, I don't have a lot of warmth, but I am going to control you. Where you want to be, the sweet spot for every parent is right here. This is the authoritative parent. This is, I am going to set limits and I am going to set boundaries and I'm going to have rules. But at the same time, I'm going to show you that I love you. I'm going to allow you to have a part in this. I'm going to explain rules to you. I might modify rules based on feedback that I get from you. I might not, but at least you're going to feel like you've been heard, and at least you're going to feel like it's somewhat fair. That is the authoritarian parent right here. I'm going to let Mr. Davis pick up next. I think he's going to get to Kohlberg's stages of moral reasoning.